Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. The industrial sector remains a strong sector of the economy, of any economy, matter of fact, be it developed or developing. Now, the developed countries are noted for their high industrial performance, and the effect of the industrial activities on the economy of underdeveloped or developing nations is still under contention. But it's a fact that the economy will not grow without industrial activities. Now, these activities include agriculture, manufacturing, mining, and mineral processing, and export opportunities for manufacturers. In spite of the efforts of the government, Nigeria still shows a stunted growth because of some constraints, and in-depth research appears to be one of the major encumbrances hampering the implementation of a draft framework for industrialization. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will explore the relevance of research in running any industrial program. But before we go into the discussion, let's get to see this report put together by correspondent Justin Bem Unyi.
Concrete blocks, what we use basically is to apply mortar before laying the blocks. But this time around, we want to eliminate the cost of labor, we want to eliminate the cost of mortar as far as building construction is concerned. So what we did is to come up with a technology that basically produces blocks that has interlocking at the edges and at the top.
In today's rapidly changing global landscape, the role of research in driving industrialization remains essential and eminent. Research has also been the cornerstone of progress, and in Nigeria, it has played a pivotal role in shaping the trajectory of industrial development. Over the years, various research initiatives have been undertaken to harness Nigeria's vast resources and talents to build a robust industrial base. One significant example is the research conducted in the agricultural sector. Nigeria's rich agricultural potential has long been recognized, but it was through research that innovative techniques and technologies were developed to improve productivity and efficiency. Research findings were utilized to promote investments in modern and innovative farming systems, as well as crop breeding programs, which not only increased yields, but also created employment opportunities and stimulated economic growth in rural areas.
We have tried to bring 1, 2, 3 research that are of benefit to the nation. Some have already started going into the farm, to the market, and a lot of transformation has happened. For example, the cowpea has been in the country now for almost 2 years, and then that is why last year I said you didn't hear anything like we are importing cowpea, that is beans from either Ghana, Niger, or Chad Republic. So with the telomeres that is released now, it is going to happen, it is going to be like that next year, and the next 2 years, we are going to be supplying all our neighboring countries.
Similarly, research in the energy sector has been instrumental in driving industrialization. Nigeria's abundant natural resources, particularly oil and gas, have been the focus of extensive research efforts aimed at optimizing extraction methods and diversifying the energy mix. These research findings have not only attracted foreign investments, but have also spurred the development of indigenous technologies and expertise, leading to a more self-reliant energy sector.
That is the fundamental basis for the work we've done with Lagos State on the mass transit buses to move them from diesel-operated buses to electric buses, and the work we're doing with Cross River State and the MOU we just signed to create wind energy to power local consumption.
Through initiatives such as technology incubators and research grants, aspiring entrepreneurs have been empowered to transform innovative ideas into viable businesses. This has fostered a culture of entrepreneurship and creativity, driving economic diversification and reducing dependency on imports.
Our indigenous technologies as well that we have been able to assist those entrepreneur within the center to perfect and at the same time push them to the market. Looking at what we have here, we have over 36 centers with their various entrepreneurs and their various products. And outside this, we have over 25 products available in local and international markets.
The role of research as a catalyst for industrialization in Nigeria cannot be overstated. By leveraging past research findings and investing in future endeavors, experts are of the view that Nigeria has the potential to further strengthen its industrial base, promote sustainable development, and achieve greater economic prosperity.
The report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's introduce our guest to you. Welcome to NTA Tuesday Live once again. Dr. Umar Bindir is an engineer and a former Director General of NOTAP, that's the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let me also welcome tonight Professor Azikiwe Peter Nwalu, is a professor of agricultural engineering and a former CEO of the Raw Materials Research and Development Council. Prof, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We're also joined tonight by Dr. Kenny Acholonu. He's an industrialist and is CEO Organics Nutrient System Limited. He joins us via Zoom. Thanks for being with us tonight. All right. Well, as you well know, this program at some point in time will be interactive. You can join in this discussion in the studio, but when it is that time, we'll remind you of the process and the procedures. But tonight, it's all about research and industrialization, manufacturing. So let's go into the issues straight away. Gentlemen, thanks once again for being with us on NTA Tuesday Live to look at the question of research, the place of research in industrialization. There was a time when industries thrived in Nigeria. We had them. A lot of manufacturing going on, and things were put together here. But it seems like a long time ago, and somehow the industrial landscape has taken a few steps backwards. How did we get there?
Oh, thank you very much. Very important question for our country. It's true, we transited from independence to now when we have a large content of foreigners in our country, the remnants of the colonialists and their structures of production. And now we are more or less highly domestic. At that time, technology flow was actually mainly foreign. You know, the processing technologies were all imported. The skills and production management were mainly foreigners. And to a certain extent, Nigerians thought Nigeria is making progress locally, but not quite, because we were milking the industrialized countries for the technology, for the application, for machinery, for literally everything. And then we gradually also started noting the importance of generating the critical mass locally. And that's how universities, from University of Ibadan, that was a campus of a British university, became totally autonomous. And then you started having the first generation universities, Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, and University of Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Then the second generation universities in Bauchi, in Maiduguri, in Sokoto, and so on. And then third generation universities. Today, we can boast of over 250, 260 universities composed of federal government owned, state owned, and private universities. So literally, we've noticed that unless you have this infrastructure, you cannot create the critical mass of highly knowledgeable people to do this. Secondly, In those days, nearly all research institutes in this country were actually managed by foreign scientists. You know, they're in Nigeria, they do the varietal development on groundnuts, on cotton, and so on and so forth, oil palm and everything, right? And then gradually again we learned, and then we started establishing research institutes. Today, we have more than 300 research institutes in this country, and so on and so forth. But the question now is, yes, we've transited from the production and productivity with a bit of the traditional foreign supervision and so on, to now very highly well-developed local technological evolution infrastructure, and then the industrial development has slowed down. Now, there are critical value chain things there are gaps, and I think as we discuss, these gaps will be unleashed.
Right, thanks so much. Situating it properly, but let's hear from Professor Omalu.
Yes, Cyril, you rightly put it. At some point in our history, we seem to have been making progress with respect to making things within this country. But we find that, like you rightly said, things have really, it's like we've taken some steps backwards. And when you look at the system, you see that it was because of the unsustainable nature of our development process. In those days when we were making things, the infrastructure base was to some extent better than what it is today. For you to be able to make things, technology and things for either processing one thing or the other, or even for providing services, there are some critical mass of technology that is required, what you may call engineering infrastructure. Every technology, like what you saw before we started speaking, all those technological gadgets you are seeing, they are made of some components like bolts and nuts, a number of things that are required to put machines together. Those things you require for building those blocks that you put together to make a machine, at that time you could find where to make them in some of our industrial clusters, in places like Lagos, Nnewi, Kano, and so on. But over the years, you find that the infrastructure that supported those building blocks started to go down, starting with power, starting with industrial machines. We used to have machine tools, so Shobo, and so on, where you could make things like drills, things like power saws. These are basic things an engineer needs to be able to fabricate, to be able to do things. We find that maybe because well, people say maybe because of oil, we found that probably it was easier to import some of these things, and then we neglected the basic things that we require to make things. And basically, for me, that was the beginning of our retrogression, going backwards. Because in those days, I remember as a child growing up in eastern Nigeria, you could even walk into Nnewi and fabricate a motorcycle. And you see people who didn't even go to school do these things, but the tools required were there. Of course, when we talk about what you require to do things, technology is always about the soft component and the hard component. Soft component is the knowledge, the skill. Now, people now are running away from, if people go to universities, for example, and all they want to do is to assimilate knowledge without thinking about how to use this knowledge to produce things, which was not there before. And then on the hard component, those things you require for making things, we started neglecting them because I guess we found free money from oil, free in quotes, and then it was easier to import everything from trucks to toothpick. And these are things we were doing before. I guess the issue of necessity being the mother of invention, apparently things were there for us, we were able to get things. But I know that during the war and all, people were really stressed and they were able to find how to do things. So it is not, I think it's just about the mindset. we left what we were supposed to be doing and we are chasing after finished products. But somebody has to bake this bread or cake, and we need to go back. My recommendation is that we need to go back to doing things, at least the basic ones we should be able to do for ourselves. So we need to address our infrastructure. Right. That infrastructure that has gone by, especially engineering infrastructure. Those things you require for making things, we need to bring them back.
Right, thanks a lot. Let's go over to Dr. Achalono, who's joining us via Zoom. I believe you have been with us so far, and let's hear your opening comments about the matter at hand. Industrialization, research, the place of research and industrialization, and why we have seemingly taken a step backwards.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this very, very important call it I won't call it a seminar, but it's more like a knowledge-based discussion on a subject so dear to me for the past 40 years and more. I will start by saying right away that my book is coming out in the next, probably within the next 1 month. The title is, Who Will Give You the Technology? That's the title of the book. Who will give you the technology? And I had a title before called From Patent to the Marketplace. From patents to the marketplace, the challenges of innovation and technology in a very difficult environment. That is still the subtitle of the book, the challenges we face. For those of us who have scientific knowledge, technological knowledge, and trying to break through into the marketplace in order to get our products to be selling and the company is growing to employ more people. And we'll say right away that I am very much conversant with the two speakers here today, Professor Malu. Thank you very much. I met you again. And my good friend, Dr. Binber, whom I have interacted with for nearly 20 years as I try to figure out how to be successful in such a difficult environment. And trying to grow business from what we call now, in business terms, the granular level, from the basic to up and up and up. What I see right now is a lot of dysfunctional policy making that do not pay attention to the critical issue of technology innovation and the rapid economic growth for any nation. For example, you can register your product in NAFDAC today. All you need is trademark and copyright. There's no law requiring NAFDAC that you must see whether the product being registered has a patent or not. This is one of the difficult challenges we are facing. But apparently, we do not realize that that is fundamentally what is wrong structurally for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics ecosystem to rise up and take leadership and dominate politics and dominate economics, and then therefore achieve growth. I repeat, science, technology, engineering, mathematics must rise up and dominate politics, dominate economics, and achieve rapid technological growth, which now comprises economic and political growth. That is the paradox I have discovered in my thesis, that we should start from there and start growing the economy from that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics platform. And I'm always inspired when I hear Dr. Binder speak about universities. And my take on it is more like the universities should really be publishing their patents on a yearly basis. All Nigerian universities, especially those with those key science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
All right. Thank you so much.
But there are many of them.
Okay.
They should be publishing their patents on a yearly basis.
Right.
And get us away from gross domestic product per capita to patents per capita. This is contained in my book.
Okay.
We need patents per capita so that knowledge can grow, and the economy indirectly will be affected, and high wage jobs. I'm very careful about this. High wage jobs that pay good money are created, not just ordinary jobs. Thank you.
Right. Thanks. We'll get to those issues as we progress with this conversation, but there are also some other reports we have here. Let's take the first of them from Lagos.
Nigeria needs to become an economy anchored on mass production of necessary essentials needed to run the society from various levels. This can be achieved through research, which is critical to deepening industrialization as it drives innovation and brings about infrastructural transformation.
There is what is called the triple helix, like a tripod. The government on one side, the research individuals on one side, and by that I mean the universities and research institutes, and then of course the private sector on the one side. So it takes these three to get an economy functioning properly, and any of these key sectors that are not doing their duty will lead to a failure in this process of harnessing research for the development of the manufacturing base.
For example, in universities, most people do research for the sake of promotion. And once they get promoted to the highest cadre, they forget about research. So it has to be a culture. It has to be a culture. It has to be something that should be ingrained in us. And that is why we need to restructure our educational system and ensure that even at the lower levels of the educational system, there is this culture of research is built into it.
According to the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, the manufacturing subsector accounts for 10% of gross domestic product. Therefore, growing this percentage requires replicating research outcomes and channeling findings into the manufacturing subsector, as Nigeria is endowed with the population to consume homegrown solutions and become a less import-dependent nation.
Nigeria, with an array of talent, resources, persons, that the country has, needs to find innovate on its resources, which, if properly harnessed, we can export and reduce the FX consumption that is affecting the value of the naira.
Stakeholders also believe that it is time to match words with actions through conscious policies, especially as the government is battling hard in its efforts towards economic recovery. In Lagos, Amaka O.
Lagos to Kaduna, where our next story comes from.
World cannot achieve any meaningful goal without taking research into cognizance. Any progress, products, and development in the society are no doubt the outcome of a research.
There is somebody that wanted to establish a food industry. He was Googling. He now stumbled on a project written by a student in a school, and then he picked it, followed it, and set up his industry. So you can see what research can do.
It is through research that inventions are come about, and through research productivity increases, and new ideas are initiated. Research is actually what makes things to happen, what makes progress possible. So you cannot actually remove research from the various progress of any society.
Research is being done every day in research institutes, universities, polytechnics, and in other institutions of higher learning. Unfortunately, some of these research are not properly utilized by the industries and manufacturing sectors, thereby resulting in decay in the sectors.
We cannot discountenance the power of research. That's why our industry in Kaduna collapsed.
You can conduct high-impact research that would solve a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, if the political will is not there to ensure the implementation of such outcome of such research, then it will just be in the shelves. The manufacturers as a group, because they have their own society, they should be aware of the various researches that these various institutes and universities and research institutes and all the researchers are doing.
Professor of Economics and the Director of Entrepreneurship Center, Kaduna State University, Seta Kutson, and other stakeholders are however of the view that there are industries and manufacturing sectors in Nigeria waxing stronger and competing favorably with other competitors due to adequate research and implementation of the results.
Dangote Refinery is one of them. It's practically impossible to build a big refinery producing 750,000 liters per day, competing, probably one of the biggest in the world, without doing your statistics, without doing your mathematics, without doing your econometrics, without projecting, extrapolating, and knowing prognosis, diagnosis. Those are product of research.
If you go to Abu, I know they have their Institutes of Agriculture. They have invented species of maize, variety of other livestock that they have been adopted and they are in use. The production that is being done, say for example at Panteka here in Kaduna, by local artisans, which is actually based on collaboration with researchers in Kaduna Polytechnic and elsewhere.
They emphasize that Nigeria needs to build a culture of implementing research findings to enable her industries and manufacturing sectors to compete with the outside world. In Kaduna, I'm Muhammad Marajingi.
Back here in the studio, the discussion continues. Dr. Binder, where's the research? Where does the research connect with the patent? Like Dr. Achalono said, this we should be talking about not GDP, but per capita patent.
Yeah. Well, you see, this whole thing is targeted at development. And the development can be segmented at 3 levels. First, for any country, the development level is gauged by the lowness of the level of poverty you have. If your poverty is high, no matter what you are researching, it is not touching people. If it is touching people, poverty will go down. Secondly, even if you conquer poverty, you give people water to drink so that they don't have waterborne diseases. You give them nice housing so that they are not dreaming snakes and people following them with machetes when they are sleeping. You give them nice food so that they are strong to perform. You give them access to sanitation so that they are clean, they don't get ulcers and so on and so forth. Still, you need to move to the next level. The next level is that massively in the country, people must have talents and skills to do things, to produce, even if it is small-scale agriculture, to manufacture, as you saw in Panteka. So skills must create this middle-class level massively so that people have jobs, people have income, and therefore you will have unity and peace. But even that, the third level is the highest level. Institutions must develop well, financial institutions, to support the middle class, to maintain the poverty level at the lowest level. The technology institutions, the security institutions, so institutional maturity. So these are the three levels traditionally. Now in our country, poverty is very high, unemployment is very high, and certainly there are challenges with institutions. That means that massive activities of research from the 250 or 260 universities, there's a question mark. The output from the 300 research organizations that you see in all these expos, where is it going to? And the secret is that we must generate very strong policies and the blueprint to implement these policies guided by these three things. I mean, if Nigerians today are complaining about food, food is costly, food is not available. If you have been to the expo that just finished, 90% of the things exhibited are food things. There's dried amala, there is dried beans, there is pomo, everywhere. So how come that these outputs have not found their way in the quality that we have seen at the expo to the community so that these products are available, they are at the high quality, and the price is affordable. So definitely there's a gap. So to me, our country needs to understand that the first thing is that universities are not established for people to do research like one of the gentlemen said there, for you just to be promoted and you go up to the highest level and you become a professor and you have a PhD. I think we should also understand that, like Achalunu said, universities and research institutes must be measured on their connectivity to people. Secondly, we must understand that also in this country, whether by force or by default, partnerships has to be strong. This culture of islands, this is my university, this is my researchers, this is my laboratory, this is my workshop, therefore this is my output, has to break so that we can be able to learn to come together to produce stronger and stronger things. Thirdly, R&D investment is very, very low in this country. The amount of money invested into real research, applied research that affects our economy is not even determined. At the last time, NASATEM determined that it was like 0.1% of our GDP, which is totally inadequate. Some countries with trillions of dollars GDP are investing nearly 3 to 4 or 5% of that GDP into this knowledge generation to sustain the economy, and so on and so on. So there are many secrets that we need to discover to be able to generate the knowledge and the activities to power our own economy in the real sense of it.
Prof, taking the research to the next level, surely there are certain constraints. That has not happened very much in Nigeria. You find countries where research institutes, researchers, the universities, they are connected to the society, needs of the people, and they're targeted at those. What's the difference here with us?
Well, the difference is part of what somebody already pointed at. The fact that those of us who find themselves in the universities wrongly think that what they are there for is to do research and write papers. But actually, I call it a misunderstanding because I started from the university sector. And I remember that looking at even the document for promotion, the number one thing you will see, I happen to have done most of my work at University of Nigeria and Nsukka. In the promotion document, the number one thing you will see is creative works. If you are in the arts, creative works. If you are in engineering, patents. But people go to the next one, which is publications. And so everybody, because you can sit down and write, whether the thing is translated into anything useful or not, you write and it's published. But if you look at that document very well, actually those who crafted it gave more weight to output, creative outputs, something that can move from that research to innovation. Now, what has happened over the years borders on slightly on what Dr. Bindri has talked about, the near absence of critical thing, that all the critical things that you need to do research. I remember as a young man with a PhD, fresh from Canada, very hot in my head, the things I wanted to do. I returned back to the university against all advice by friends and family to return from Canada to Nigeria. I remember when I came back, I found that I was battling with so many external factors, factors beyond my control, strikes, water, no water. I remember the first car I bought was the shock absorber was damaged because I had to be carrying, as I was going to the university to work, I had to carry jerry cans in the car so that on my way back I would fetch water. So all these external factors, the resources are not there to do research. Mind you, I just came back from a lab in Canada where just say what you need and it is there in the lab. And so you were able to achieve a lot within a short time. But in Nigeria, we have all these factors, all these challenges that make it almost impossible for people to really do real research. And so what we now find most people doing is what I may call mediocre research, where you just put things together, maybe propose a model, build something, and of course there is an expo coming, you go and showcase it. The Techno Expo that he talked about, over the years I've been involved in assessing the innovations. And I tell people that some of what we exhibit are not real innovations. They are proof of concept. And people misunderstand this. So you go to Eagle Square, for example, and you see all those things there, and you say, with all this, why are we not making progress? There is still a lot of work between those things you are seeing and real commercial products. And that is where we have been missing it, and this is where we need to focus. It's still a lot of, I think my friend Bean recalls it, the value of that, if I remember correctly, in commercialization. In my own lab, we've done quite a bit in terms of coming up with products, but it was only when I got to Raw Material Council that I found, and then I had a little opportunity to empower Nigerians, especially those in the knowledge centers, to be able to commercialize some of their products. And they worked. And you find that when properly supported, using the triple helix that somebody talked about, things will happen. And in fact, there are many examples, well, not many, but a few examples where you have researchers, you have industry, you have commercial people, all working together on a project, and the product of that project comes out seamlessly without any problem. Now, what is happening in our system is that we do research, continue doing research until you have R&D products, which we mistakenly call innovation. That R&D product, we now say, okay, now, how do we commercialize it? And we now begin to look for money, how do we... But if at the beginning of this research, you bring in the researcher, whether it is the researcher or somebody brings in an industrialist, who will actually tell you what he's looking for. What is the problem that needs to be solved? What is the product that the industrialist or the commercial person is looking for? And they all work together, of course, supported by policy. You find that as they move on, by the time that product is there, you don't need any body to go and convince the industrialists that there is a research product for commercialization, because he's been part of it and he's been making input, and by the time that product gets to that level, he actually picks it up. And so the researcher can continue doing other research and leave manufacturing for manufacturers. They will pick it up. If a researcher actually needs to do this, there is also what you call contract manufacturing. In other words, you can actually come up with a product, and I've seen it work, and then instead of worrying yourself about producing, because when you produce in your lab, maybe in your university or research institute, you can only make one unit, 2 units, highest 500 units because of the environment you have. But if a manufacturer that is equipped to manufacture picks it up, he will manufacture in millions. And this is where the Chinese beat us. So if that manufacturing process produces millions of the same product, the unit cost does what? Drops. So you can compete. So what we have found is that we have the research centers, the numbers that Dr. Bindi mentioned, all trying to do things, and at the same time we are expecting them to also do the manufacturing. It will never happen. I have tried it, and all I could do was 2 units, 3 units. Actually, people can actually come and order 1 unit, 2 units, and I produce for them. But that is not business, because the unit cost of that, I cannot compete. There was somebody we supported, I remember when I was in Raw Material Council, to start making these kinds of things, ceramic wares for toilets and so on. But because the economy of scale, he was producing so little in terms of quantities, what you have in day-to-day market, he couldn't compete. Except when, I think what helped that man was that, I think one of the housing projects, we were able to convince them to order large quantities. And so he was able to commercialize. So there are models of commercialization that can work. And this is what we need to put in place. And I believe the current drive, I saw our president recently when the Academy of Science visited him, I saw him making a very important policy statement that he is ready to support research. Now, what that means is that what we see State Fund do, the different agencies of government, NASENI, raw material, all the things they are doing can actually be consolidated into an NRF, or National Research Fund. Now, that National Research Fund is not just about money, it's about having priorities. So they can now set the agenda for research, and more importantly, concentrate on commercialization, because the little study I have seen and my experience shows that we have a large number of R&D results all over. If you remember that we have centers of excellence now driven by NUC, we have some centers of excellence driven by TED Fund, and a number of things going on. There are R&D results all over, but we need to move them from what they are now to the market. And that can only happen if we get it right. And I know we have eggheads in this country that have the blueprint, but it is the political will to drive this. And I believe it's doable. Thank you.
So, Dr. Acholonu, the political will, that's how Prof has just said it, that yes, all these results are out there, but to take them further would require the political will. And there are some factors that surely will affect this. No least, of course, is the matter of funding. Again, if you take a step back and look at efforts of administrations in the country, at every point in time, there's always been one effort to support research and try and evolve a means of these research getting to be commercialized. There's one right now going on, which is said to be the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund to address infrastructure deficit. But in real terms, how can the country go from where it is now to a level where there would be this connection with industry and commercialization?
Thank you. The last 2 speakers have brought one particular topic to the fore. That is, as much as we talk about science, technology, innovation, we must never forget that science, technology, engineering, mathematics cannot solve all the problems. You need leadership, you need management, you need human capital, and you need financial money and financial strategy. This is the missing link between what you might call research results and commercialization. The missing link is that gap between research results or R&D and getting it to the marketplace, or what is now called innovation. You have an innovation when your product is said, this works. This works. And I have been involved in this because the title of my book, Who Will Give You the Technology, says clearly, the gentleman was not very, I would say, political enough to ask me that why do you want to go against our decision to give our business to a trading partner, not for me, who is a knowledge-based partner. And he forgot and asked me if I try to compete with them. This is a foreign company, mind you. Say, who will give you the technology? Technology is critical for development, but more so is leadership and management and financial strategy. How do you get the money you need, like what Prof said, to take it from producing 3 units, 4 units, to making 4 million? That requires a robust financial strategy, or what they call in business, information memorandum. Enough information about the product you have developed or seen in the lab, and said, if I do this, it will give me this. And then you may have what is now called proof of concept. Who wants it? That's marketing. Who will buy it? And it's not 10 people, it's not 15. They're talking about millions who want to buy the product. You must show that to potential investors, whether equity capital or loan, those who want to give you loan or those who want to give you equity. You must show clearly that you can perform before they give you their money. Otherwise, they will not. I know that for experience. They will not give you their money unless they are sure you will get it back to them. So the ability to do that now rests clearly not in the science and technology area anymore. It moves down now to financial strategy, marketing strategy, human capital strategy. Who are the people? Production strategy. Who are the people to get it done? And how do you intend to get it done in order to get to the marketplace and win? So I will advise clearly that if you have any product that you believe can go from 3, 4, 5 units to 10 million to 15, and you don't have the wherewithal to get it done, please start looking for an investment memorandum specialist, or what they call feasibility study, or somebody to give you a bankable project, so that you can get the money you need to hire people, to rent a place, to rent a building, to build a production facility, and to do your quality control. And I will spend some time on that sometime to talk about the importance of quality control, because nobody will buy your product unless you have NAFDAC certification, unless you have SON certification. You must have all those. And there are specialized people within your organization who must do that And let me tell you, they don't necessarily come cheap. You must pay them because these are first degree holders or second degree holders in biology, biochemistry, chemical engineering, food science and technology, and in the pharmaceutical area, those who have done pharmaceutics and have done pharmacology, you know. So these are science specialists within your organization who will make sure that the product you're making meets the specification which you want to give to the market. And this is where regulators come in to make sure. So you must have all those. And I have seen so many people fail because they are not even willing to give out the money to the workers who must do the regulation, who must visit NAFDAC, explain to them what they are doing, and then get their specification, and then come back and apply it, get your raw materials, whether it is local. If it is local raw material, you must still certify it with NAFDAC. It's not enough to say it is local. Therefore, you must still certify it before you put it to use. If it is imported, you must certify it locally to say this product can be used. So the issue is management, leadership at the highest level to make sure that the organization succeed and that the project succeed. And this is one of the few issues we have faced. And then the issue about government, customs coming in, Nigerian customs comes in at a certain point to make your business go or not go, because they regulate every raw material you're bringing in. It's customs that regulate it. But in my book, I have a proposal that customs should be helping those of us who are producing locally. Please identify those producing locally and make sure that they are producing more in synergy with the Ministry of Trade and Investment. We should not leave customs alone to just make sure that, to ensure that you collect money, you collect taxes and custom duty. No, customs should really pay attention to the national economy and say, what value is this of this product or this company bringing to Nigeria? I think there should be a checklist for customs on that, so that they know whom to query and ask tougher questions, and they know whom to let go. Like the gentleman really who made Taiwan semiconductor possible, who made Taiwan the Taiwan of today with chips making semiconductors. The gentleman said clearly, the job of government is to make making things easy. Making things easy. For those of us making things, we are not finding it easy. Because in some cases, you face situations where Nigerian customs is querying you even when you are producing locally. And they're allowing imports of your product come in while you are struggling to make them in Nigeria. So this is a regulatory issue, and I put that in my book, so that customs really should take, and the Federal Ministry of Finance should take a better look at how to make sure that those making things are known to be making things. It's not pretending. It's, you know, you are making things. You have workers, you have people you employ. And in this case, science and technology-based production and specialized production, not mass production, not commodity production. Science and technology production is different from mass production of products. And that's what I call high wage labor demands that you make high value products. making high value products is needed. And customs should start segmenting. So they should have more like a Minister of Economic Development within customs to point out who is making what and who is helping the nation to move forward in terms of creating high value products and then getting you ready for industrial competitiveness. It's not only making for local market, it's getting ready to export. No, so you cannot win, really. You can win if your own internal organs in Nigeria are not making things easy for you. How can you export?
Okay.
Even to Ghana here, to
Now,
South Africa.
Well, these are also some of the other challenges we'll be looking at. But Dr. Achalono, thanks a lot. At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll take the conversation further, looking at those things that need to be addressed and quickly too, so that Nigeria can begin to reap the benefits of the numerous research documents which we've agreed here tonight are available but are yet to meet with commercialization. So stay with us. We'll take a short break now. When we return, the phone lines will also be open so you can join in the conversation. We'll be back shortly.
Innovation Talk Show.
Right. Thanks for staying with us. This segment will open the phone lines in just a moment or two. You'll see the numbers on your screen. You can call in to contribute to the discussion on the subject matter. The lines will be there. And we just quickly remind you that if you're calling in tonight and your call gets through to the studio, turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point, keep it short so others can also get on the platform. And we say this, we never tire of saying it. Don't worry too much about the greetings. Hello is just perfect. And we expect you to join in the conversation in the studio here. So we'll start off with another of our reports. This one is from Orca.
Plays a critical role as a catalyst for manufacturing and industrialization by improving efficiency, creating new opportunities for economic growth, and helping to adapt to changing market demands, regulatory requirements, and technological advancements. Investing in research allows industries to explore new ideas, test innovative solutions, and discover valuable insights that can lead to breakthroughs in production methods, resource utilization, and quality control.
When you are challenging the status quo, you're saying that this can be done better. How can it be done better? And this is where the issues of documentation, methodical thinking, critical thinking will come in. Then you begin to innovate, become more creative, and this is what research helps you to do.
Any researcher, whether even in spiritual matters, in material matters, must be able to come out with something that will improve on what is now. If that cannot happen, then is one out of so many. And for any research to be one out of so many, they have not made any impact.
Findings show that neglecting adequate research in industrialization often leads to many consequences, including folding up of the business.
Those that really want to get into industrialization and manufacturing should do well to engage professionals on whatever they want to do, come up with a scientific result with regards to what is trending, what may go or what may not go, because it would be very dangerous for them to engage into an enterprise that will be a failure at the end of the day.
And if you don't do proper research before embarking on any industry, you are doomed to fail. And that's why so many people, they will put in so much into an industry, and after a couple of months, the industry will fold up. It's because there was no feasibility report.
In Anambra, the state government is partnering industrialists to ensure adequate research before embarking on their projects.
We've got to think 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, where lies the future? And that future will lie essentially in industrialization.
Embracing research as a strategic priority can pave way for long-term success, growth, and prosperity in an increasingly dynamic and competitive global economy. Inoka Ndemkalo.
Now let's go to Niger State and get this report from Mina.
And development is considered an integral part of harnessing technological advancement towards industrialization. However, in Nigeria, most research and development outcomes, like those developed by the 32-year-old Scientific Equipment Development Institute, SEDI-MINA, a parastatal of the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, has over the years been left unutilized. Scientific Equipment Development Institute, SEDI, in Mina, Niger State, is one of several research institutions from across the country that has been developing scientific equipment. But not just scientific equipment, they've been able to develop other very important components like this electrical insulator, all locally produced here at the institute. SEDI, which has over the years developed various products like the mobile chemical sprayer, melon shelling machine, and multiplex printing machine, among others, have largely been left unutilized by public and private sectors. A researcher and professor of mechanical engineering, Mohammed Baba Indaliman, is of the opinion that lack of infrastructure is the bane of underutilization of most indigenous research outcomes.
I can say that conservatively, that 50% of infrastructure requirement for an industrial concern to work very well should be supply of power. And this is one of the biggest challenge in the country. You will see quite a number of, large number of all the industry are providing. If you don't make provision for supply of energy to your industry, you will never move.
Collaboration with research institutes and higher institutions of learning through concepts like reverse engineering are ways in which new technology can be used to spur industrialization.
There have been disconnect between research institutes and between research organizations, universities, institutes, and the manufacturers. They do not link. There are no link between them. It's a challenge in this country. We should have that synergy. As soon as something like that is designed, the next thing is for manufacturer to pick it up and they create portion for it, and that's how it can be used for large-scale production. Already the design itself is for large scale. You see how it's working.
The consensus is that industrialization can only be achieved when infrastructure challenges are overcome. Dauda Mohammed.
And now let's see this other report from Port Harcourt in Rivers State.
Production and manufacturing sectors culminated in the current overdependence on importation with their consequences on the nation's economy. Stakeholders identified power inadequacy gap and poor funding to the rail sector at the center of the challenges affecting the sectors.
If they can able to empower the production sector, release fund, it will enable everyone to sit up to fight against this economic holocaust.
Our farmers have to be involved as part of the government, which is auxiliaries. Storage facility can be built by the Nigerians. We have Nigerians who are technically qualified to put up for you in every local government, in any market whatsoever.
With advancement via research and development, some say adopting cutting-edge technologies such as solar and wind energy could bridge the power inadequacy gap.
If you go to some other countries, they are using just only the waves to create enough movement to move motors to generate power. And then of course the solar system is also there. We have abundant solar. So we should be able to also develop adequate muscle in terms of solar energy that can be able to fire our industrialization. So I think that the Minister of Power should think out of the box.
To other observers, states should play an active role by investing in independent power projects, creating industrial parks and farm estates as part of their contribution to providing the enabling environment for growth.
Despite the situation in Nigeria, the state governments are getting more funds from the federation account on monthly basis. The government should be able to reach out to these people deliberately.
Yet, others are of the opinion that with the expected increase in oil revenue following the removal of fuel subsidy, funds should be channeled to more research development while efforts be integrated to prioritize the development of raw material production sector to support manufacturing and industrialization. In Port Harcourt, Kingsley Amajiri.
Right. Back here in the studio, power is critical. If you set it up, if you're going to industrialize, you need power. For those who are in manufacturing, there's no way you can take out whatever has been produced and translate it to products when you don't have adequate power. But beyond that, it still seems as if with everything that has been done, with all the brilliant reports that have been written, whether it be in food processing or such issues, there is still a rudimentary production going on in society. And you cannot industrialize on large scale with such, practices, can you?
Well, no. But you see, what you see there is just the tip of the iceberg. And you can't actually move to the next level. It's a value chain. Look, first you have to prioritize your process for industrialization. I like talking about, because I worry about the high level of poverty in this country, and it has many colors. If you were to prioritize production of food, let's say even you narrow it down to the production of rice, everybody in this country eats rice. It has to be planted, therefore it needs technology for planting. The soils have to be prepared, it needs technology for that. You need seeds, there is technology requirements for that. You need fertilizer, there's technology requirements for that, and so on and so forth, until you do that. Now, Cyril, if you were to concentrate and even see the palliatives that you see, state governors and the constituency projects reeling out in this country, if we were to strengthen our policy and bend backwards to say that every single grain of rice produced or distributed to our poor people must be produced in Nigeria, we will go a little bit forward. That is how industrialization happens. Power is a problem, but power also is a technological challenge. It needs research. Nobody says that until you have mains power, that is when you have power. Creativity and innovation can also develop infinitesimal power units so that you can be able to learn how to make bigger things and small things. I'll give you an example. I saw out-of-school children in this country as a big problem. Not many people talk about it. There are between 20 and 30 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, and they're everywhere. And then I said, how can we survive at this level in 2022, 2023, with that level of high out-of-school children? And I entered that, and I realized that the Almajiri syndrome as a component of the out-of-school children,
Yes, please.
Yeah. As a component of the out-of-school children, I narrowed it down, right? And I realized that at least even the Almajiri that we talk about, within the Almajiri too, there are ones that go to Sangaya, that is the Islamic schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just ask you to pause a while here. We're trying to get through, see if there's a call coming in. We can't really make that out now. I think we'll have to work on our connections within the system. Right, this is a call coming in from Jos. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Series, thank you for the opportunity to hear my opinion. I learned that our defense house in Kaduna and that of Brazil were established the same year. But where are we now in Nigeria in terms of the record achievement, creativity, innovation, and all what have you. You see, we have a challenge in the leadership right from the military transition in Nigeria. How can government come on board without a proper plan to support the innovation sector, to support the researchers, to support the economic growth? Does that mean any government, any administration that came on board lacked the political will to address such kind of issues? In terms of research, what is government doing to encourage the researchers in our institution, Mr. Series? Do the government have a proper plan to address these kind of challenges? We have a very big challenge. Look at Brazil and Nigeria. How can we do? What is the way forward? Any government or any administration that comes on board, in terms of before the primary election, if they are out, to sell their ideology of every political party, these guys will tell us solutions to all the problems. But the moment we elect them into the political office, no implementation. If we continue like this, we are going backward. Okay. So I want to use this medium, to call the attention of the present administration to support the private sector, to support our researchers in our institution, to support the independent researchers as well. If not, Nigeria will continue going backward, which we don't pray so. Thank you for the opportunity to hear my opinion. This is Isa Fada directly from Jos, Mr.
All right.
Siri.
Thank you very much, Isa Fada. Thank you. Okay. Yes, just before that call, we were talking about that part of it. Yes.
So I concentrated on the Sangaya one, and I did a lot of research. For the last 12 years, I've been running up and down. But I can tell you, to cut the very long story short, I saw that if you don't go into these Sangaya schools, where these 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds are sitting on the floor with technology, it is impossible to now stop the generation of insecurity, generation of poverty, and so on and so forth. And I'll demonstrate to you. Mm-hmm. I came up with this. This is a result of a research. And this is the traditional aloe that everybody knows. It has the head, but this is not wood.
All right, because we know of the wooden slates.
This is part of the, yes. So from the wooden slate, you still have to leave it, but then you have a pad there. Mm-hmm. That pad, you will have the Quran in it. You can read it, soft. You can have the hadith, so you've satisfied the Islamic side of the whole objective. But in addition to this now, you can pump into this 10,000 video applications of skills, of morals, of politics, of anything you want. How do you make a goosey soup? You can put a 2-minute video here. All the girls in the Sangaya can know. How do you paint a house? You can put a 2-minute video here. The boys will know what is happening. How do you greet your parents in your tradition? You can put a 2-minute video here, so the morals can increase. All these things, don't steal things and so. So what I'm trying to say is that you can actually come up with devices of this nature, and you can collapse it. It can sit like this. It can become a computer. You can draw on it. You can do education. You can do morals. You can do mathematics, everything. So now, this is patented. And actually, a manufacturer, Kaswamu, has taken over this. I bring this issue because if you really prioritize and you focus, it can happen in this country.
Right. So now you've taken the traditional slate,
yes,
wooden slate,
yes,
and gone a step forward, and yet you can maintain all those traditional things in there, the religious aspects,
yes,
so they can stay in there, and technology has come in now to take it. So as we go on, we'll also look at the place of education in all of this, and whether there is need to do something about the way the education system is currently composed. But let's try and take this other call from Abubakar, who's calling in from Kaduna. Hello.
Yes.
Hello, Abubakar, are you there?
Hello, Mr. Cyril. Good evening. Hello, yeah, good evening.
Good evening, go ahead.
Hello. Okay. Yes, Mr. Cyril, the discussion started very interestingly, and there was hope when it started. But one thing I would like the discussion to know is that some of the people watching, you know, are not as educated as they are. And the challenges like the other people raised are where we were, where we are. And
oh dear.
You have even shown the ghost landscapes of industries in Kaduna, Kano, and other places. And one of the discussions raised an issue. What the discussion said was that the industrialization should be able to dominate the political landscape. And there was even another discussion who quoted whose technology is going to be used. The other thing is somebody said we have to start all over. So I was thinking that there had been researches, and researches could be for a startup or for upgrading. Most of these industries now we had are no more working. Isn't there any possibility of either the government or whoever thinks should play the responsibility to go around the failed factories, why they failed from their technologies, the new innovations by the researchers, and way forward how we could resuscitate them, so that all the researches made can be adopted, at least to start out these industries.
Right.
So I'm thinking that this is very important to the discussion.
Okay.
Because at least we are getting somewhere instead of academic discussion.
Right.
One of the things that we must avoid is that importation took over from the industrialization, because most of the industries operating then depend on importing raw materials. So you import raw materials, then you start all over. They found it cheaper to start to import the finished products. And other culprits that helped were the banks. You go to the banks, they are after a short financing, not a long financing. They are after the turnover. There should be a short financing policy.
Right. Thank you very much, Abubakar. Okay, thanks. Right back here, Prof. Two things. Education, do we need to do something about that? And in terms of what the last caller just raised, raw materials.
Yes, we definitely need to do something about both of them. In terms of education, we must change the way we teach our children. And I think there has been reforms in the education sector over the years. The most recent one is the current effort by the National Universities Commission that has come up with what is called CCMAS. That's a revision of the BMAS, the Basic Minimum Academic Standards. For me, I think it's a brilliant idea. What they have done is to say every higher institution, every university in this case, in terms of curriculum, you know, the original BMAS, which is the curriculum for education in our higher institutions, is basically the same standard, minimum standard. Then you can actually go beyond that. But what the new system is saying is that 70% of your curriculum will be uniform, so to say, from one university to the other. But 30% can actually be peculiar to you. In other words, you can tweak your curriculum so that you specialize in certain areas. You have a niche area. It may be, for example, that because of what is going on in the tech world, you want your university to be known for tech. So even if you are studying engineering or you are studying history, it must be loaded with tech. So by the time you are coming out, you actually have your own startup, you actually do all the beautiful things that our young people do. In that case, you change your curriculum so that you are known for a particular area. Now, it can also be that you are interested in soft skills. For example, people that speak like Siri Stoba, and they have that kind of skill, which is really, that's part of what Dr. Chalon is talking about. Some of these soft skills are really very important for you to survive in industry. So it can also be that your curriculum will be tweaked in such a way that soft skills like public speaking and things like that, negotiation powers and so on, you will be known for that. So whether you are studying engineering or medicine and so on, you are equipped with such skills. Same thing with entrepreneurship. You can say we are producing medical doctors, but we want those medical doctors to be able to run hospitals. Not just the knowledge of doing surgery or so on, but to be very good businessmen. So you see, you now begin to specialize. And in addition to that, there is one of the concepts that we've introduced even in my university. The process of bringing industry, not just close, but into the education system. We call it Industry Advisory Board. What that means is that in the university, whether it's at the faculty level or the departmental level or the overall university level, you create an Industry Advisory Board. That means you can pick people from industry, commerce, even government, and make them members of your advisory board, so that on a quarterly basis or so, you can have meetings. Thanks to the aftermath of COVID. Now you can even do online meetings. So these people that may be very busy can actually attend your meeting once every month. Once every quarter. Now what that means is that the way we do it now in my university is the professors, heads of department, if you have really something that is actually going to be a breakthrough research that you are doing, during that meeting you highlight it. And then the industrialists are sitting watching. You may finish presenting and they say, Prof, this your innovation is not innovation, it's not going to go anywhere. But in that process, the industrialists will begin to tell the professors or the researchers because it's the one that wears the shoe that knows where it pinches. They tell you what their problems are. It may not be that thing you are researching that is their problem in production or how to be competitive. And they can begin to tell you what to do. And then you take that back, and then your PhD students, MSc students, you now give those things to them as research. And hopefully, there is funding for research.
Right.
And more importantly, if that industrialist is interested, he will tell you, no, whatever this thing will take, I'll fund it. But before, what we were doing is we were in our ivory towers, doing our research, doing our publications, and these people are there suffering and, struggling to survive. So this is very important. The second thing you talked about is
I might have to ask you to pause on that. We'll come back to the raw materials issue, just so we can take this call from Birnin Kabi. Umar on the line. Hello.
Yes. Zero. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Umar, calling from Birnin Kabi. Umar Anati as usual. You see, apart from political will, which government controls, the university themselves, those research institutions, they have their own problem. Most of the research being conducted for the purpose of promotion only, not for the purpose of displaying it to industrial improvement. They will just conduct a research, present a very good paper for the purpose of achieving academic qualification. That is that. And the other problem is that they forget about our local artisans. Those our local artisans. Let me tell you one thing. There is a local guy, a simple artisan that developed one kind of machine that if it is harnessed and collected and provided and develop it, it will help Nigeria. For example, one man is called Chindogotogo. He developed a machine that can produce sobo, this local sobo, our local sobo. He can produce it, he testify it in quality. So instead of government, that is where the political will come in. Instead of government to see that research as a good conduct and collect it and develop it and find out where the problem is and erase those problems and develop that machine to the commercial something, it will go a long way in developing our industries. But rather than doing that, they engage in only calibration, only celebration, only saying yes, he performed well, without funding. So those are the problems. There is need for our universities to engage our local artisans. May God continue to bless our country.
Right. Thank you very much, Umar. Yes, Prof. The aspect of raw materials and local,
yes.
local content.
Yes. This is really very important, and government has done a lot in terms of having policies for raw materials development. You find that there are sharp practices in the system, not the entire system, but you find manufacturers who refuse to listen to what government is saying. Government is saying, look inwards, have backward integration. And just like you said at the beginning, at some point we were getting it right. I remember at some point in the East, and I believe in different parts of the country, the breweries, for example, were even getting involved in farming. They were producing maize because at that time there was a policy that you can actually produce some of these beverages from maize. They were growing all kinds of crops and processing them, adding value to them and making them to be raw material. At some point, some of these industries, we go and get whatever concession that they can get from government in terms of the importation. And then instead of importing those things that cannot be done in Nigeria, they, in the disguise of importing raw materials, import the raw material. Now, what should happen is that whatever raw material they are going to import will be those raw materials that cannot be produced in Nigeria. But especially in the food and beverage sector, there is nothing you cannot make in this country. And even in the mineral sector. Today, we see that all these raw materials are there. But of course, some of the mistake is that for us to think, okay, we have lithium. Now everybody is saying we all have lithium. But you know that that lithium that we have is not in the form that you can use it for manufacture of batteries. So there is value addition that is required. You need to take that, first of all, you need to even mine that lithium and bring it out. Not the kind of mining that we are doing now, but the kind of mining that is supported with, by technology. Now you get it out and you find that maybe it is about 10%, 20% in terms of the purity. So there is need for beneficiation. And this, sometimes people ask this question. So some of the people that do manufacturing say, okay, I'm not interested in this value addition. So they go out and pick what has been added value from outside and just do assembling if you wish. But we need to get to a point where these raw materials we have should be value added. In other words, there should be another set of industries that take these raw products and add value. And these industries were actually springing up at some point. Maybe because of some of the reasons that have been given, reasons of infrastructure, insecurity, challenges, and so on. Some of these industries, I remember at some point, government supported some of these pioneer industries to start. But somewhere along the line, it became unproductive, it became unprofitable. People spend their money to start some of these industries. I'm sure somebody was referring to, for example, the Kaduna cluster, where you have some of these industries that process raw materials, maybe not even up to finished product, and what they are producing becomes feed for another industry, and so on and so forth. And that was when we had this boom. Around Onitsha, Newi, you see a lot of them in Aba, and then of course, if you go to Ikeja area and so on, they were doing all these things, and some of them had subsidiary industries that were doing backward integration, and they were using researchers. I remember a case when I was in Raw Material Council. I remember a case of a professor that was funded by a government agency to do his sabbatical in an industry, not going to another university to teach. That is, to me, that is not sabbatical. But he was moved to an industry, and within the 1 year of sabbatical in the industry, the research he did in the university, he used it. I think in this case, if I remember correctly, they were trying to find use for the sludge that comes out when you produce vegetable oil. When you produce vegetable oil, the one with the refined oil, there's a sludge that comes out that in most cases these are discharged into the waterways and so on. But he had a research he did in the university to show that you can actually use that sludge that you get from palm oil after processing it into refined vegetable oil to make grease for vehicles, for engines. And grease is a big industry. And normally the raw material for making grease is from petrochemicals. But he was able to reduce the use of petrochemicals to a certain extent. That's value addition, and he came up with a product. Now, that professor, I must tell you, did not return back to the university because the product that came out of that was able to sell, and the industry retained him, and of course we lost him from the academia. Yeah. But this is a very good example of what can happen, and the example I'm giving is very important. Ask me, how did this professor go to the industry? Initially, the industry was not ready to pay him for the period of sabbatical, and that's where government comes in. Government provided some fund for that 1 year for him to be receiving salary. And by the time he finished his sabbatical, because they saw his value, the value of the research he was doing, what it has added to their profitability, they retained him and say, become our technical advisor for producing other products in addition to this product. I think these kinds of things we need to be encouraged in such a way that our researchers, because really we have some very good researchers, with due respect to the last speaker, yes, some of them do research just for publishing. But there are some good researchers that come up with very good results, but because of the system, they are just there. And when they are not able to move into innovation, the only thing they can do is to keep publishing. Right. So when we have these kinds of interventions, I believe if it's done on a massive scale and done in a sustainable manner, we are going to get out of where we are today, where we can have things done by our researchers feeding into the industries.
All right. Let's get back to the phones now. Another call from Jos. This is from one of the regulars on this program, Ada calling in from Jos. Hello.
Hello. Hello, Cyril.
Good
And your
evening.
guest is Ada, calling from Jos Plateau State. Any nation that does not give research its pride of place will find it very difficult to develop rapidly. To make matters worse, research has been politicized in Nigeria today. That's why we are not making the desired progress. Corruption is another issue. We just have to have a rethink to pave way for industrialization if we are to forge ahead as a nation. Fiscal federalism will enhance research work in Nigeria. Here, what you are practicing now, I don't even understand it. If we are practicing fiscal federalism, I don't want to say true federalism because federalism is federalism. There's nothing like true federalism. We coined the word true because we know we are not practicing federalism. If we practice fiscal federalism, states will harness what they have and then pay tax to the center. That will now give room for competition. We are import dependent. That's another issue. So we cannot be talking about industrialization when we are import dependent. We don't patronize made in Nigeria goods and services, and then that doesn't encourage the industrialists we have in Nigeria. Nigerians are very resilient people, you know. We just need a little push. So the government have to really have a rethink and give research its pride of place so we can move ahead. Look at the Naira now, what is happening to our currency. You cannot stabilize it. I'm not an economist, but I know that with my elementary economics, you cannot stabilize the value of the Naira and make it pronouncement. You have to be involved in exports, you know, so that you can now earn foreign exchange from other areas apart from the non-oil sector. You know, but we are all focusing on oil, and the oil we cannot even refine here because our refineries are not even working. The Dangote refinery, we say that is on board. We are hearing stories. It doesn't have enough crude because the oil theft. They can't block the oil theft and make sure they give him sufficient crude. So I don't know where to even start from in Nigeria. We are just, I can't really understand it. Because Nigerians are very resilient people. Look at what is happening in Abia State today about electricity. Did anybody think they can have 24 hours electricity non-stop and all that? That is part of it. All the semblance argue for Nigeria shall be well.
Thank you very much, Ada. Well, yes, and at this point, let's link up once more with Dr. Acholonu. And, well, you've seen the dimension that the discussion has gone, and certainly these issues that have been brought out to the front burner need urgent attention. How would you, how would Nigeria proceed to the next level?
I believe that looks like an obvious answer. But I would rather go back to a meeting we had at Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. And I believe Dr. Binda was in that meeting. The topic of that meeting was Africa, science and technology for Africa. That was a topic. That was 17 years ago. African Union had that topic, research and technology for Africa. And the summit, and this is contained in my book, the summit recommended what Dr. Binda had mentioned earlier. Please, all African nations, put 1% of their GDP to R&D. That was a recommendation of the African Union 17 years ago in Addis Ababa. And my company, we had an exhibition. And I remember a Zimbabwean seeing our products we're making locally and telling me, Doc, if you can make this in Zimbabwe, you can drive away all the people we import this in from South Africa and Europe. If you ask me, I just heard that the American Constitution, 1776, apart from we talk about Bill of Rights, we talk about human human rights, we talk about freedom, we talk about the rule of law, had in its charter protection of intellectual property. Intellectual property rights. That can be done tomorrow without writing the Constitution or just adding it. Intellectual property rights to be enshrined in all our documents. Please respect those who have knowledge, who can create usable products and make usable designs, and who can transform their society. They transform their companies, and they transform the workers who work in those companies, and they transform society. That is the trajectory. It starts with intellectual property rights. Is not being paid attention at all. It must be. It can be a starting point, and the African Union, after they finish their meeting, for those who read the Economist of London, they published a front page, opinion page, saying clearly, oh, this newspaper is guilty of not telling Africa something that they should be saying. Apart from rule of law, democracy, rule of law, democracy, that they should add intellectual property research and development. Today, China publishes 27,000 patents. Or 27 million, either 27,000 or 20. Please pardon me for the figure. But America is 24. I think 2.4 million. Or 24. Please pardon the figure. But it's 27 to 24. China is ahead of United States now in patent publication. But 30 years ago, China was not even number 28. They were not there. So we can't start with intellectual property rights without any political undertone. Just make that statement to say we want, even our diaspora intelligentsia, those who have patents in UK, Europe, Japan, Asia, they might be waiting for this type of signal that if I come into your country or to our country specifically, nobody will take away. Investors are scared of their intellectual property being touched by anybody. They are scared.
All right, let's back here, Dr. Binder. You certainly are not scared of, but that's also an issue, intellectual property rights. And, but there is a law on this.
It's the key issue. But people might think that there is a law. The intellectual property regime in this country is scattered. First, you have the trademark registry as a directorate in the Ministry of Trade and Investment. You have the patent registry for Nigeria, again as a department in the Ministry of Trade and Industry. You have the Copyrights Commission in the Ministry of Justice. And then you have NOTAP as a regulator for the inflow of foreign technology or foreign intellectual property into the country in Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. So these are three islands, and the coordination is very, very important. I think the starting point, just like we have the Minister of Finance and coordinating Minister for the Economy, and then you have Minister of Health and coordinating Minister for Social Welfare or something, we should also have Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, coordinator of research, technology and innovation. That will now enhance the synergy. Number two, I think our country, if we have that synergy, should have a scale to measure, just like Professor Acholonu said. Every university, be it federal, be it state, be it private, must publish every year their own intellectual property profile and content. What have you produced that is addressing the Nigerian problem in food, in water, in security, and so on? They should then, the Ministry of Industry should also publish, in coordination with Ministry of Science and Technology, and how much of this intellectual property has been absorbed by industry on some terms. And I can tell you, if this is happening, university professors can be billionaires, because taking your intellectual property means it's a licensing arrangement. I will give you 10% of the profit I make on this your invention. The universities will find additional sources of funding because intellectual property is being absorbed by industry. The third, possibly the final thing, a lot of people think that there's very low level of funding on R&D. No, contrary to that. Look, we have nearly like 40-something funds in this country, and all of them have science and technology content. Sugar Council has a fund. NIDA has a fund. NCC had a fund. Raw Material Research has a fund. TED Fund is a fund. Petroleum Technology Development is a fund. There's fund all over the place. And all these funds should publish what percentage of your funds is being injected in R&D of your sector. So if it's Sugar Council, how many millions or billions of that fund is invested in research for sugar, for Nigeria to produce the sugar, and so on and so forth. So these are things that are available, but not really as available as we think.
Right, we're in the last few minutes of the program, so we'll be winding down here. And let me take this closing segment to Professor Nwalu. And as we begin to look towards doable practices to address this problem, and Nigeria is in a hurry to industrialize. If you think about the hordes of people who are out there without gainful or who are not employed, what should be the priority now?
Well, for me, the priority would be to systematically empower people to produce. I think it is called startups. We've seen that the large-scale industries are having a rough time maintaining, except those who are international conglomerates who can get support from outside the country. But I think the future of Nigeria is with startups. Young people, young men and women coming up with tech-driven businesses. And what is this tech? This tech are results of research. And I believe that if these young people can get support, and it can be done in a systematic manner, if you want, you can say every research center, every university, every polytechnic should drive startups. But of course, they have to have access to the kind of funding that is required to drive startups. So that depending on, when we talk about startups, people think we are just talking about engineering products. No, there are other products. For example, services, products such as conducting an election without any problem. There's technology in it. So, and Nigerians, I believe, can do the research. There are actually products in those areas, but those products have not been commercialized. So if we do this in a systematic manner, where every institution is challenged to have a certain minimum number of startups coming out from their university or polytechnic or research institute or whatever, and this is monitored in such a way that every year we can keep a track. We can see, it can even become one of the things you use in benchmarking. Nowadays we talk about ranking. Oh, my university is number 1, it's number 2, and we get. But what are we counting? We are actually in most cases using H index, which again is talking about publications. Yeah. We can reverse this and say, look, our problem publications are important, mind you, but our problem is about innovations, it's about commercialization. So our benchmark will be how many patents, how many startups, because of course one level is to do the patents, another level is to commercialize, to have products, goods and services from those patents, and that's where startups come in. And then if we have this number of, and we have a big population, so if we have large number of startups springing up, mind you, some of these startups may not necessarily go into production. They may be targeting the big players. So you come up with an innovation and they don't want you to compete with them, they buy you over. In other words, you can even sell that to them and go on with other things. And I know that young Nigerians, the ones at least I've encountered, very smart young Nigerians who can do things. And we support them, especially doing research in those areas that affect our economy: energy, power, food, water, and so on. And we have these millions of startups all over the country. And this can be supported by the federal government, by state governments, not only the federal government, state governments. There's a project I'm running now that takes me to a number of West African countries. And what I see, we're trying to support the science granting councils of those countries, and including Nigeria. In each of these countries, I see them just like a state in Nigeria in terms of population and even complexity of the society. And they are doing well. So why can't we do that, looking at our size, so that we have millions of startups supported by R&D, and then getting support from maybe venture capital companies and so on, that can also be supported by government, not by giving them money, but making it possible for venture capital companies to have the kind of resources they need to support startups.
All right.
Thank you.
And it is on that optimistic note we'll end this conversation. We'll leave it here for now. I always say no one program can take care of all the issues. So we must leave this conversation here, and do hope that at some point in time, what we have been able to talk about would lead to such productions as this that I see here is very attractive. Yeah. And hope that somewhere along the line you would marry the culture, religion, and traditions with, technology as you produce to push Nigeria to that to become that industrial hub that all those in government have often talked about. So I'd like to thank our guests, Dr. Umar Binder, former Director General of NOTA. Thank you so much. We always enjoy your contributions on these discussions.
Thank you very much, Cyril. But one tiny little recommendation is the implementation of the Research Innovation Council that has been approved years ago. And the important thing is that this council is actually chaired by the president. Okay. It is only the president that can now radiate all these ministers to be coordinated.
Right.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Professor Peter Nwalu, Professor of Agricultural Engineering and former Chief Executive Officer of the Raw Materials Research and Development Council. Thank you, Prof. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Right. And let me also extend appreciation to Dr. Kenny Acholonu, industrialist, CEO, Bioorganics Nutrient System Limited, who joined us via Zoom. Thank you so much for being part of tonight's discussion.
Can I say something quickly?
Yes.
Just 1 second. The patents for China last year was 940,000. Wow. And America was only 348,000. Now that is really where the competition is, not in products and services. It's in knowledge creation capability. Please let us get there in Nigeria. Only FIRO publishes patents in Nigeria. FIRO is the only institution that has. So let us move on to, and micronutrient laboratories, my company. I have 2 patents in Nigeria. And many times I'm facing challenges now defending those patents in the law court. And that's not correct. Because
so thank you
be able to protect it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Achalona. Thank you. And also thanks to those who joined in, calling in and offered their suggestions on the issues at stake. We appreciate you being part of this program. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.